Aboru aboye, aboshishe. Over the years, I've gotten um, some of my greatest joy and deepest insights out of having conversations with people who I never actually meet personally. So someone will call me or email me from a different part of the country and sometimes different parts of the world to ask a variety of questions. And a couple of days ago, I got a really great call from a young brother who I've spoken with several times, and it's great because he is apparently in a circle of people, other young people who are seekers, and they've come up, raised in Christianity, may be exposed to Islam, have become students of the Egyptology, the Metu Neter, and now are coming home to Orisha. And as seekers and thinkers, they're trying to connect the dots. And so naturally, parallelism is very prominent because they want to know is Eshu the same as Sebek, or is it the same as Satan? Is Shango and Thor the same thing? You know what I mean? And on. They're wondering, how to connect the dots between these different parallel energies or icons or mythological figures. And so it's a great thing, and I like to use the analogy of language to help people understand what parallelism is all about. Um, Religion is a language of the spirit. Okay, religion is the language of the spirit. The religion is not the spirit per se, but it is the organized, codified pattern of sharing the spiritual experience with many people. It's the language that helps frame up your spiritual experience in a way that you can come back to it repeatedly. You can replicate the experience. That's what religion is, just what like language is. When you talk about we're going to cook pounded yams, that replicates the experience, that you can follow the recipe for making pounded yams. The language helps you do that. Likewise, the language of spirituality helps you replicate the spiritual experience. All right. And so, as there are many, many spoken languages, there are many spiritual languages. Okay. And so, when you have your mother tongue, the language that you were brought up speaking, and then over time you pick up another language, or you become exposed to another language, you'll notice that people have an accent, right? So someone whose first language is English, when they pick up Spanish, they're likely to have a really heavy Anglo accent. And what is that about? What does the accent represent? Well, the accent is a result of your mind, your ear, using the sounds that are familiar to it to try to approximate little by little the new sounds that you're acquiring in the second or the third language. All right? So you use the sounds that you know to try to replicate the new sounds in the language. All right? And that's what is actually happening in the religious context as well. People are using the language of Christianity, which is what they're familiar with, to try to understand the religious and the spiritual codes of the Yoruba people. Okay? So it's natural that in the beginning you would try to make the parallels between this spiritual concept or this angelic figure and the other. All right? The most important thing for your learning, your true learning and your development, is to appreciate the limitations of parallelism. Parallelism is only valuable to the extent that it gives you a point of reference. All right? It allows you to see that, all right, there's a higher being that they call this, generally speaking, we call it God, they call it Olodumare, we call it Allah, they call it, whatever. Conceptually, it just gives you a point of reference. But in order for you to talk about those different things, you have to use parallelism to talk about the deities and the angels and the nature and the jinn and whatever the case may be. You have to use parallelism. This is like that, and that's like the other one. But at the moment that you decide you want to speak to that deity, well, then parallelism is out the window. You cannot use the language of Egyptology to speak to a Yoruba deity, in the same way that you cannot use Spanish language to speak to a Yoruba person. It doesn't work. You want to speak to a Yoruba person, you speak in Yoruba. You want to communicate to a Yoruba deity, you communicate in Yoruba spoken language to the extent that you can, but definitely in the Yoruba ritual language. You're going to follow the ritual sequence, in other words, that correspond to that philosophy. All right. And so, if you are in the midst of a spiritual circle and you're having those conversations with people, remember that parallelism is only valuable as a way to talk about the different concepts. But when you want to speak to those different principles, you want to activate those principles, that's when you have to start to speak the ritual language that belongs to that particular discipline. All right. And when you want to learn that discipline, when you want to go to the source code of that discipline, and you want to follow all of the protocols from A to Z for Yoruba spiritual discipline, then of course you ask Ifa. Aboru aboye, aboshishe.